The story I have for you today is a true mind bender. Just when you think you have it figured out, I am gonna throw a huge twist your way that will make you gut check all your assumptions. Because this is a case that starts like so many before. A young woman goes missing, and her boyfriend that she had a tumultuous relationship with was the last one to see her alive. So when her body is found, he becomes the prime suspect. But years later, old news footage gets unearthed that reveals a now convicted killer was at the crime scene watching on as police worked. So, who really killed Tina Knaub? It's just before noon in York, Pennsylvania on May 22nd, 1985. A time before apps and cell phones when you could skip school and play hooky without parents being instantly notified. Well, that's what two teenage boys were doing that day, skipping school to do important things like throw large rocks into a creek just under the West Princess Street Bridge, seeing who can make the biggest splash.
Priorities.
Yes. But when one of these teens reaches for another large rock, he notices something underneath it, a garbage bag with human hair sticking out from it. Now, this might deter some, but not this kid. He opens up the bag and gets the shock of his life when he finds a human skull inside. Now, for a brief second, he and his buddy aren't sure what to do. They even consider taking off and just going back to school before they get into trouble. But reality kind of slaps them in the face, and they know that the right thing to do is go tell the police what they found.
I can't imagine just having this innocent day off school and then boom, there's a body.
Oh, I know. So I understand their reaction to be like, we should probably
just go back.
Let's just pretend like we were where we were supposed to be all along, right?
Exactly.
So what the York PD finds when they come to investigate are the remains of a young female inside, in an advanced state of decomp. Now, she'd been buried in a shallow grave that had been hidden by those large rocks. Some sources claim that she was under 2 or 3 feet of rocks, which police told the York Dispatch tells them something. This would have taken someone real time, which they think might show that whoever buried her, they say took care, maybe even showed compassion for her.
2 to 3 feet of rocks. I mean, that's actually, we used to pick up rocks in my parents' farms. That's a lot of time.
We literally would spend a day on a gator picking up rocks out of a field.
Yeah, I'm imagining picking up rock after rock, finding all of them, stacking them, would it take hours for one person to do?
Yeah, which is why it's surprising that nobody would have seen that happening. I mean, again, is it happening under the cover of night or something? But this is an area where people are driving around. This isn't the middle.
Populated.
Right. But again, is that because someone's trying to put distance between themselves and this person? You would think if the person didn't know her, they would just leave her out to be found.
Because how is it going to get tracked back to you?
Right. So the police kept saying they're taking care or whatever for her. For me, it's more they needed to make sure she wouldn't be found because she's connected to them. And they think they know who that her is. You see, the victim in front of them is still clothed in corduroy pants and a windbreaker jacket. And there's also a pair of sneakers at the scene too. And they recognize this clothing, or at least they think they do. Almost 15 months ago, to the day, an 18-year-old named Tina Knaub had been reported missing by her family. And the last thing she was reported to have been wearing was corduroy pants, a windbreaker jacket, and sneakers.
Does the decomposition look like she's been there all 15 months?
So I'm not sure that they 100% know that yet, but it is looking like it. And honestly, it's a little surprising to me that she wasn't found sooner, or that whoever buried her wasn't spotted when they were doing that. Because I said, that would have taken some time. And the bridge that Tina's body is found under isn't off down some country road. It's in the town of York, near a high school and a park and the police station. So you have to think that people and cars are going over this bridge every single day.
I mean, maybe it wasn't that noticed because she was in that garbage bag. It might not have stood out as much.
Well, maybe, but I'm actually glad you brought that up because I did want to mention there is some conflicting information if Tina's body was actually found in a garbage bag or not. I'm not sure if that plays a role in this too. Some sources say she was, and then one of the boys who found her says she was too. However, Barry Bloss, who was one of the lead investigators, said during an interview with the Codorus Murders podcast that that's not true. No bag. So TBD if that played a role in her not being found or if whoever put her there just flew under the radar and got very lucky. I don't know. Anyways, 3 days after she's found, the autopsy is done. And while they're eventually able to confirm with dental records that the victim is in fact Tina Knaub, they're not able to determine any cause of death. Now, one thing the autopsy notes, as mentioned in the York Daily Record, is that her pants were open and her zipper was pulled down. So this could indicate some kind of sexual assault took place, or at least was attempted. But again, because of the condition of her remains, they can't test for that at this point. And I read she was too decomposed for them to even do a toxicology, report or testing. And Barry Bloss points out in that podcast, a lot of that likely had to do with the water level. It had risen multiple times in the last 15 months since Tina was last seen. So not only had she been out there just for a long period of time.
Her body was underwater at times.
Exactly. So while they aren't certain about how Tina died, investigators do suspect foul play, and they believe someone killed Tina shortly after she disappeared back in February of 1984. So now they have to work backwards. Now, luckily, the jurisdiction she was found in is the same one she went missing in, so they have everything they need at their fingertips. According to the York Daily Record, they know that on February 24th, 1984, Tina was last seen by her boyfriend, 19-year-old John Rudacille. Now, he saw her at about 10 p.m. when she left their apartment to go to a friend's house. Now, when she hadn't returned by the next day, John called Tina's mother, Ina, but Ina didn't know where she was either. Now, Barry Bloss said in that interview that it was actually the other way around, that Tina's mom went to John because she hadn't heard from Tina. And we tried reaching out to John to try and confirm or get comment about this, but we never heard back from him. So I don't know which way it was. But either way, I think it's fair to say that both became really concerned pretty quickly because Tina and John have 2 little kids, and it's not like her to just not be there for them without any explanation. So best I can put together from some conflicting information, because, by the way, the police won't answer our questions either, it seems like not too long after this, the York Daily Record reports that Ina, John, and Tina's sister Debbie went to report Tina missing. Now, when she was just missing, it's unclear how serious police were taking her disappearance in the early days. I assume, or I at least hope, that they were talking to her friends, confirming she never made it anywhere that night, which, to my understanding, she didn't. I hope they were talking to her boyfriend, her family, but none of that was reported on. And like I said, police won't give us an interview when we requested on it to get some clarity. They told us they couldn't talk about this case. So I don't know what they did early days. But I do know that after her body is found, that's when a real investigation gets underway. And if they weren't already, friends and family start pointing the finger at John. You see, things weren't all sunshine and rainbows in their relationship. Tina's friends and family tell police that John and Tina had a rocky relationship. Sounds like Tina even kicked him out at one point, and for pretty good reason, because John, by the way, was also seeing another woman in their building around the time Tina disappeared. Oh, and get this, according to the York Daily Record, just 6 months after Tina's disappearance, John married this other woman.
So he had been dating the woman the whole time and then immediately gets married.
Yeah, he had been cheating on her while that they were together, and obviously living together. They've got kids together. And I as far as I can tell, and again, this has never been said explicitly, but it doesn't seem like there was any break, right? Like his girlfriend, his baby mama goes missing, and then this woman comes in, and within 6 months, while she's still a missing person, they get married. So, the police interviewed John at his mother's house in the early days of their homicide investigation. And according to the York Daily Record, John admits that he and Tina often disagreed. And those disagreements usually revolved around her going out with her friends at night and him being stuck to watch their children. And they actually had one of those fights, he says, when she left that final time to go to her friend's house. I guess he had asked her to stay home, and according to Barry Bloss, he even went as far as to try and physically stop her from leaving. Like, John admits to police that night he took the shoelaces out of Tina's shoes and tied them around the doorknob and like the deadlock so tight that she could not physically get out of the house. And interestingly, it sounds like she was found without shoelaces in her shoes, which seems to back that story up. But the only mention of this detail is in that podcast interview with Barry Bloss, which is like, I can imagine all these years later that coming out, but it wasn't reported on earlier. So after trying to physically lock her inside, John tells the police that he eventually told Tina, like, fine, just go. And he apparently let her leave, and then you know the rest.
So just to be clear, John attempts to stop her from leaving using
her shoelaces.
Then just like changes his mind, lets her go, and she just happens to go missing the next day.
Yeah. Well, that's John's story, and he's sticking to it. Now, I know that they at least talked to his new wife, because remember, he's been married for a minute by this point.
Yeah.
And it's reported in the York Daily Record that she tells police, quote, "If I had any thought John did this, I would not be with him. I value my life and my kids," end quote. Now, they also interviewed John's mother, who insists her son had nothing to do with Tina's death. And she's got lots of theories about what could have happened. She says Tina was known to walk alone at night. She would even walk alone a bicycle path along the creek where her body was found. In at least one source, John's mom claims that some of his friends also saw Tina up to like 2.5 months after she disappeared. So I think she's like trying to make the timing not so suspicious. Like maybe she left and then something happened way later. Like that fight she had with John that night means nothing because that's not the night that she was like last seen.
Right. But
to be clear, no one else is ever quoted saying that they saw Tina after February 24th. So this sighting doesn't really hold any weight, especially because when police interview Tina's friends, according to the York Daily Record, one of them says Tina was supposed to come over on the 24th. This is the day that she disappeared, but she never showed up. Another one of Tina's friends had this like interesting encounter with Tina, which at least one source says took place in February before her disappearance. Now, unclear on the exact date, but that friend says that Tina had come around to like say goodbye. And Tina didn't tell her where she was going. And this friend didn't think Tina was like leaving her kids or anything, but it did feel like more than just like her saying like, oh, I'm leaving wherever we are together, I'll see you later kind of thing. Like it felt a little more ominous, or at least looking back on it, it does. And this person points out that, you know, Tina was a young mother. She was unemployed, and who knows, like maybe she just needed a break. But Tina obviously didn't leave because the West Princess Street Bridge where Tina's body was found was only a few blocks away from where she lived. Now, sometime not long after Tina was discovered, the York PD gets an anonymous call from a woman who says, quote, "I want to tell you who killed Tina Knaub. I have to hurry before they come and get me. We were having a pot party that night, her and me and Stephen Wayne. They got into a fight," and then click. The line goes dead. Now, some sources say that this woman on the call said, "I know who killed the skeleton under the bridge," and that they got to arguing versus like a fight. So there are some conflicting reports on the exact wording of this, but like, I mean, you still get the idea of like, this is a bombshell.
Yeah, but it's a bombshell with questions. First off, who are Steve and Wayne?
The police don't know. No one seems to know. Not even John recognizes these names. And if I were John, I would be like searching high and low for anyone with those names to get the heat off of me.
Yeah, or at least side-eyeing them.
I know, but he truly does not know. Doesn't even pretend to know to help himself out, which honestly to me feels honest, right?
Yeah.
So there is nothing in the source material that the police could or did trace this call back to where it might have originated from. If the police change their mind and talk to us, I will obviously ask. But as far as we can tell, this tip ends up being kind of like a black hole of nothing that they can verify. It just gives them 2 more names to add to the list along with John, if those guys even exist at all.
I assume they asked more than just like, who are Steve and Wayne when they talked to John? Like, Or like a pot party? Like,
I
did
know.
they ask about that?
I hope they did. I would assume they did. But who they asked or what they said, what the question was, like, never reported on. I don't know.
So police really only have John.
Well, yes, but only until June 8th, when all of a sudden they are forced to consider an unlikely suspect. Anyways, so assuming something happened in the apartment, if it was John, because to me that seems like the most likely scenario, again, if it were him. The real question Detective Barry Bloss and others had is, how could he have gotten Tina's body to where it ended up without anyone seeing? As I mentioned, they lived a few blocks from the West Princess Street Bridge, so you would have to cross several streets from the apartment building to leave the body where it was ultimately found. And it's Tina's mother who offers up a theory to investigators. She tells them that there were some large furniture boxes in the apartment before Tina vanished, and at some point, those boxes went missing. She said she even asked John about the boxes, and he claimed like he didn't know what had happened to them. So Tina's mom suggests to police that John could have put the barely over 5-foot Tina in a box and carried her that way. So
the implication is that he's just carrying her in a giant box? That feels just as conspicuous.
I agree. The thing I kept trying to find was did they have a car?
Mm-hmm.
Did she have one? Did he have one? Did they have access to one? But there's no mention of that anywhere. So I feel like I'm missing a piece here of I understand where her mind's going, and it's where I would, if I had a daughter that was murdered, you'd be looking for anything.
Right.
But I don't know, because I feel a car has to be involved, because carrying a bag, carrying a box across all these streets, that's going to draw attention too. So maybe she's thinking, again, I don't know the car situation, but is it a box to put into a car to then drive? I don't know, all unclear. But either way, it's still all a little sus. Though it's worth noting that no boxes seem to have been found anywhere. So this is all theories, all speculation, with no actual proof that John murdered Tina or a box had anything to do with anything. So according to the York Daily Record, over the next 2 years, police continued to question John off and on. At times, they would even pick him up and drop him at the site where Tina's body was found, the hope being that at some point John would just confess. But he does the opposite. He maintains his innocence the entire time. And then finally, in 1987, John gets smart and he lawyers up. According to Barry, when he talked in that podcast, he refuses to take a polygraph, which he initially agreed to, but you got a lawyer now, they're never gonna let that happen. So according to that York Daily Record article, 1987 was the last time police talked to John. And I don't know if it's because of this or just the fact that police really don't have much else to go on, but Tina's case went cold after that. Though there were attempts over the years to heat things up. In August of 1988, Crime Stoppers offered a $1,000 reward for information on Tina's case. So that was a step in the right direction, but not a step that really moves the needle. The only thing that does that comes in May of 1989. And it comes from a news cameraman at WGAL TV. So this person is reviewing some old footage that he had taken, out there doing the Lord's work, making connections, paying attention. And I don't know all the details of why he was reviewing this stuff or what was going on, but the station ends up sending the district attorney of this county a videotape and is you need to watch this. And when the DA hits play, it's news footage from the day that Tina's body was discovered and removed from underneath the bridge. And at one point, the person operating the camera, pans up to the West Princess Street Bridge. And you can see 8 people there, gawkers, just kind of watching what's happening below. Now, nobody would have recognized those 8 people in 1985. But now, in May of 1989, one of those people on the bridge, a teenager, stands out like a beacon. It's Quinterio Poncho Smart. And the DA knows him because just a month before looking at this tape, his office had secured a conviction against Smart and an accomplice for the murder of 29-year-old Judy Ann Ketterman, which took place in October of 1987.
What?
Yes. Coincidence? Maybe. But as the district attorney points out, Judy and Tina's murders had some real similarities. For starters, they were both young women with children. And more importantly, both crimes took place along the east side of Codorus Creek. Although there was nothing in the source material that says she was buried like Tina, and there was a cause of death for Judy. She was beaten and sexually assaulted, whereas we don't have the full picture with Tina because she was too decomposed.
Do we know how far apart the crime scenes were, though?
I mean, a 15-minute walk from where Tina's body was found to where Judy was murdered. You can walk along this creek trail bike path thing that I mentioned earlier. And this dude, Quinterio, is a really bad guy. He was also convicted of sexual assault of another woman and the robbery of that woman's brother. And according to multiple sources, Quinterio had also told others that he had killed before, maybe meaning Tina, maybe just boasting, I don't know.
So he was watching a crime scene get investigated, and then he himself goes on to become a murderer
of someone in that
the same demographic
and same area too, which makes you wonder, is him being there proof that he circumstantial proof that maybe he did something to her and was watching his own work,
or did it give him the idea that you could get away with murder if you did it here?
Or even just was there something sick and twisted in him? And when he saw what happened, did that give him the idea to then do what he did in 87? I don't know the answer. I don't think anyone knows the answer. Now, Detective Barry Bloss in that podcast interview indicates that Quinterio was interviewed, but not by him. And then we get nothing else about him in that interview. Not if he was cleared, not if they suspected him, not even what questions he might have been asked about Tina. And unfortunately, Detective Barry Bloss passed away in 2023, or we would have tried to ask him ourselves, because I have so many questions about this guy. It seems like if they do still suspect him, they haven't gotten enough to move forward because Quinterio has not been arrested or charged in connection to Tina's murder. But he is, I will say, at least behind bars because he got 30 years for Judy's murder and additional time for the other sexual assault and robbery. But that's not a whole lot of solace for the police or for Tina's family, who are left wondering if this could be their guy.
And the fact that Tina's pants were unbuttoned and unzipped feels more like the MO of Quinterio, unless John has some rap sheet that I don't know about yet.
No, it doesn't appear that he did, as far as I can tell. But I will say, Detective Bloss had his own theory about the pants, not related to Quinterio, but his goes back to John. So I guess he talks about this in the podcast. He says that he thinks if something had happened in Tina's apartment, it would have been possible that John dressed her. I guess they were pretty tight jeans she was wearing, and who among us hasn't had to lay on a bed to zip up their favorite pair of jeans, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how these were apparently. Okay. So he's thinking that maybe he put the pants on her but couldn't get the pants zipped up or buttoned or whatever. And Barry also notes that the jacket Tina was found in was John's windbreaker. But in my mind, I'm if John dressed her, why put her in your clothing?
Right.
It's just as likely, they're boyfriend, girlfriend, they live together. I've grabbed Eric's jacket. I don't know. So that's Barry's theory. I don't know for me if it totally makes sense.
Yeah, to me, it's just as likely that she could have grabbed his jacket before leaving the house. It's big, it's warm, whatever.
Yeah, the only thing I think about in relation to the pants is touch DNA. I don't know what they have to work with since so much was destroyed by the water. But if you found his DNA on her pants, in specific areas, would that prove that he pulled them up? Probably not, because they lived together.
Yeah,
I don't.
Did he pull up her pants or did he fold laundry that week? In my opinion.
So I don't know if that's even available. I don't know if anything would have survived the water. Obviously, it's not something they would have access to test or do anything with in the 80s and early 90s. So they did more of what they could in the 90s. In October of 1990, Detective Barry Bloss and his partner appeared on an episode of Crime Stoppers 800, which is a syndicated show that aired nationwide from a short stint, 89 to 91. And they were hoping that someone would see the episode and offer some information. They even read the transcript of that anonymous tipster's call from 1985, thinking that maybe the woman who called in might call again. but it doesn't appear that she did. And while tips do come in, there's a problem. A second case aired on the show that night, and people got confused. They call the York PD with tips on that case, not Tina's. So once again, nothing really comes of this. The years drag on, but the York PD once again circles back to the boyfriend, John, who is now divorced. And when they do this, again, they're still not talking to him, he's lawyered up, but they decide to talk to people that he works with, hoping John might have said something to them. They talk to his friends, but no one has anything to offer. And over the years, police also interview other people John ends up having relationships with, hoping that he might have said something to them, or maybe even made threats indicating that he had done something to Tina, but nothing comes of that either. So fast forward to 2005. This is when DNA testing is like a real tangible thing. Police do send off some stuff for testing. Now, we know one of the pieces of possible evidence sent is a soda can that was collected at the scene, as reported by the York Daily Record. Nothing in the source material explicitly states that the clothes were sent. I'd like to think they were, but again, knowing they were in water all that time, I don't know if they would produce anything. A lot of times labs will actually look at stuff before they even do all the testing and burn the money, which is maybe what they did here. Long story short, whatever they do send off, no DNA ends up being found. And this testing in 2005 appears to be the last big push in this case. And while investigators over the years would return to the cold case, re-interview people, re-look at evidence, they all end up in the same place. No arrests made, no closer to solving Tina's case. And this goes on and on and on. John has never been arrested in connection to Tina's death. No one has. And I want to make that clear because we talk about a couple of different people in this episode. Tina's brother is never formally connected to her case. The same goes for the mysteries Stephen and Wayne, too, if they exist. And this is probably a good time to say that if the woman who made that call is still out there, I'm sure police would love to hear from you. John has continued to maintain his innocence over the years. In a 2016 York Daily Record article, John is quoted as saying, "I wish this would get solved. That would be something positive in my life." Something positive is exactly what needs to happen in this case, especially for Tina's two children. Tina's father, Tim, died in 2018, followed by her mom, Ina, in 2021. And they never found out what happened to her, who took their daughter from them. And then her sister died of cancer, too, unfortunately. 40 years is a long time to keep a secret. So do yourself a favor, whoever you are or whoever out there may know something, and free yourself of whatever burden you've been carrying all this time. Just come forward. If you know anything about the death of Tina Knaub, who is thought to have been murdered in February of 1984 in York, Pennsylvania, please contact the York Police Department at 717-846-1234. We're also going to leave a link in the show notes where you can submit a tip anonymously.